So this isn't a photoshopped image. It's a real photograph. It hasn't been digitally altered, and it's a real house that's been painted entirely matte black, except for the circular void you see in the center, which has been left unpainted. The photograph was taken in early dawn light, and I worked with a film crew to shut down the street, to light the house and the surrounding areas, to then film and photograph it. My name is Ian Strange, and I'm an artist. I make paintings and drawings, films, photographs, and sculptures. But I'm here today to talk about a project that I've been working on for the past 9 years that's taken me out of my studio and into suburbs and communities around the world. So this house is in Mountainside, New Jersey, and it's the kind of place that you'd imagine if you think of the American suburbs in film and television. And it's part of a larger body of work I've made in America called Suburban. The project took 3 years as I traveled from my base in New York to communities in New Jersey, Ohio, Michigan, New Hampshire. I worked with large film crews, volunteers, and communities to create works directly on and with suburban homes. At each location, we'd spend days repairing the houses, dressing the gardens, and then painting directly onto the homes, to then light, film, and photograph them at dusk and at dawn. I worked with firefighters at an incredible training academy in Ohio to set a whole house on fire. I cut sections out of a house, transported them back to my studio to rebuild them as sculptures, paintings, and artifacts. So all these final photographs, film works, sound installations, and sculptures became exhibitions in New York and at the National Gallery of Victoria in 2013. So often the homes I work with are demolished soon after I make my work. So it's a documentation is where my work finds its form. I use this documentation process to heighten the emotive intent of the work. I want these homes to be considered as the universal home, the imagined and idealized home, the home of memory, TV, or childhood. So by using lighting, film crews, and this cinematic process, the homes are elevated. These aren't just images of these specific homes in these specific neighborhoods. They're a reaction to the imagined every home that we all understand. But these American homes are just part of a larger global body of work. I've covered homes entirely in gold wallpaper, literally taking its safe interior and placing it onto the outside, leaving it vulnerable to the elements. I've cut homes open and lit them from the inside, covered them in giant black text you'd see written in the sand of a desert island. I crash-landed a 3-bedroom Australian home onto the forecourt of the Art Gallery of South Australia, and I painted red brick Australian homes entirely matte black, compressing them into one colour and essentially erasing them out of the landscape. I even turned a home into a temporary art gallery in the final days before its demolition. So why would I do this? Well, what I'm fascinated by is our subconscious relationship to home. We load so much of ourselves onto it. So by taking this familiar object and subverting it, I'm asking the viewer to think about it anew as the unhomely, where something is distinctly familiar, but foreign and unnerving at the same time. Home shapes so much of the way that we think of ourselves and the community around us. It can represent family, safety, security, and the economy. Even the fact I can make this work. These homes are often scheduled for demolition or have been impacted by natural disaster or economic inflation and decline. When we think about a home, it becomes such a familiar object that even someone who is homeless becomes defined as homeless, and a child who grows up in an apartment building, when they draw or asked to draw a home, will often just draw that square with a triangle on top. So I guess what I'm saying is a home isn't just a single home, it's a ubiquitous symbol. It's something we all have a relationship to and we all understand. And at the core of my art practice, I'm attempting to take that psychological understanding of the home and place it onto the outside. So I was saying before, even the fact I can make this work is because many of these homes are scheduled for demolition, have been impacted by natural disaster, economic inflation, or decline, which is the other part of my work. Experiencing this work in a gallery as a photograph is very different to the experience of the work in the context of these communities. When I was making my work suburban in the USA, it was in the shadow of the GFC, which left many homes foreclosed or due for demolition. But when we worked with these homes, we wouldn't just turn up and start painting. We'd work with land banks, community groups, arts organisations to make sure the projects would be welcome there. To get the homes ready for filming, we spend days restoring the homes. People would tell us stories of the area, they'd cook out for us, they'd stay up all night with us while we were filming. People would discuss what the work meant to them while standing right in front of it. In Poland, I worked with curators and the local historical society to match the gold wallpaper to one that had a particular historic significance to that area. And in Western Australia, I worked with red brick homes due for demolition at the height of the mining boom there. These homes have become a symbol of affordable post-war home ownership, and it sparked long conversations in the street about these homes disappearing and what that means now. So what these projects taught me is that the home isn't just a static thing or one thing. It's not just an image or an icon. It's also the stories of the communities and the people that they're a part of. So in 2010 and 2011, there were a series of earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. The 2011 quake was a 6.3 magnitude that destroyed large sections of the city, as well as the surrounding suburbs. After the earthquake, there was a mass exodus of people from the now abandoned suburbs. It created what would become known as the residential red zone, an area cordoned off and containing over 16,000 homes scheduled for demolition. In 2013, I was invited by the Canterbury Museum as well as Rise Festival to create a work directly on and with homes in the red zone. The curators were interested in a work that would somehow archive these homes, but also act as a dialogue with the community still healing. So 3 years on, these houses were boarded up, their gardens overgrown, waiting to be demolished. The streets were empty, with no light, power, or sewerage. So after visiting Christchurch in a period of consultation, 4 homes were selected in one street to generate a new body of work. The body of work was designed to be a collaboration with the community, as well as my own team, producers, engineers, the Earthquake Recovery Authority, as well as former residents and neighbours. We worked for weeks to restore the homes and the gardens, to take them back 3 years. I didn't want to make a work about ruin, I wanted to make a work about the memory of these homes. I then worked to make large geometric cuts into each of the houses, working with engineers and demolition experts. Once the cuts were made, the interiors of the houses were painted white. Then, working with a large film crew, the houses were lit from the inside to then be filmed and photographed over 3 nights with the help of legendary New Zealand cinematographer Alan Bollinger. The final film and photographic documentation highlighted the negative space of the cuts, allowing the light to pour out. I wanted to open up these homes to reveal their vulnerability and loss of function. Most earthquake-affected homes in the red zone were either split, sunk on an angle, or left with gaping holes. So it's a common sight to see homes so broken. And when you see a home so vulnerable, with its wall missing, it subverts its message of safety and security. Outside is suddenly inside. I wanted to make a work that somehow did this beautifully, that took these aggressive cuts, this loss of function, and made it about release. The final film and photographic works were exhibited at the Canterbury Museum back to the community itself and are now a part of their permanent collection, acting as an emotive archive of these since demolished homes. Interestingly, I exhibited this work in New York earlier in the year, and people still had a strong reaction to the work, even before they knew the story of what happened in Christchurch. And that's what fascinates me, that this icon of the home is so universal, that it can read so specifically to the communities that they're made in, but also make an impact when exhibited on the other side of the world. I used to worry about where the final work was in these projects, if it was the documentation, the final photographs, films, sculptures and exhibitions, or if it was the process, the community collaboration and the work when you could stand in front of it in the street. And of course, The answer is that it's all of those things. And that's also what's so powerful about the home, is it's not just one thing. It's a symbol, a metaphor, and an idea. But it's also a very real place with its own history, stories, community, and people. So that brings me to now. This is an ongoing body of work. Every community that invites me in informs the next project, the next idea, the next questions. I'm moving into less Western ideas of home. What does it mean to not have a home, to be displaced or nomadic? And having travelled for the last 9 years making this work, I'm perpetually reminded of the irony of an artist with no set home, travelling the world, making work about home. But in the artist communities I collaborate with and the communities who welcome me in, I've been given a very unique understanding of what home is and can be. Thank you.